On Wednesday, we opened our conference with a wonderful speech by the President of the United States. Wasn't that terrific? We've heard from senators and congressmen, from radio and television hosts, from grassroots leaders, from activists in the Hispanic and the African American communities, and we've heard from cabinet officials. Frankly, at a certain point, we had a quorum to hold a cabinet meeting in the green room if we could have just piped the president in from Air Force One. And tonight, our keynote speaker is one of our closest friends, our champions, and a hero of the faith community, Vice President Mike Pence. He is no stranger to this organization or to this stage. He first addressed a Faith and Freedom audience in 2012, and this is the third year in a row that he has keynoted our gala. As a member of Congress and as a governor, he earned a well-deserved reputation as a principled, common-sense conservative who was respected by his colleagues and was viewed as a rising star in his own party who was headed for bigger and greater things. I don't know about you, but I will never forget where I was on the day in July of 2016 when Donald Trump announced that he had selected Mike Pence to be his running mate. For millions of members of the faith community, it was a moment of joy, genuine gratitude, and celebration. Because you see, we knew Mike Pence. He was our friend. He was a champion of the family and a defender of innocent human life, and we trusted him. And we were thrilled that Donald Trump saw in him what we had seen for years, a great leader. And since then, he has only risen higher in our eyes and in the eyes of this president. He is decent, humble, principled, courageous, discreet, and loyal. Loyal not just to the president, but to his principles, to the American people who elected him, and to the Lord who he serves. We have had more policy victories and more personnel advances in this administration than all previous combined, and this man is one of the reasons why. And we are truly fortunate and blessed to have a man who shares our values and shares our faith in Jesus Christ, not only trusted, but his advice and counsel relied upon by the President of the United States. We thank God that he has raised this man up. So please welcome the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
Thank you all. Thank you all for that very warm welcome. Thank you all. Thank you all. It It's wonderful to be back. Wonderful to be back with the men and women of the Faith and Freedom Coalition. And I'm especially honored by the words that just preceded me. You know, Abraham Lincoln said his only ambition in life was to be esteemed by people that he esteemed. So would you join me in thanking Ralph Reed for his extraordinary leadership of this great coalition and this movement across America. Ralph and I have known each other a long time, all the way back when we both had dark hair. But Ralph knows me well enough to know that I'm humbled by his words, but the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order, and it's my great honor to be with you tonight. And to be among so many people that make such a difference in pulpits around the land and in public service and leading organizations that represent our values. But I'm also honored to be joined tonight by some of my real heroes, like Senator James Lankford from the great state of Oklahoma. And to Eugene Scalia, who is with us, and the hundreds of Americans of faith who have come from near and far, and all of those looking on. It's a joy to be with you tonight for this Patriots Gala. And I also understand that later tonight, the Faith and Freedom Coalition is going to recognize another American who I have admired throughout my adult life. He's someone who has carried forth the conservative message as an educator, as a historian, as a voice on the public airwaves like very few Americans. He was Secretary of Education, and he's been educating Americans about the strength of our values and our foundation in liberty. Allow me to offer an early congratulations tonight to the recipient of this year's Winston Churchill Lifetime Achievement Award, Bill Bennett. It's an honor to be with you today. Congratulations. So well deserved. Congratulations, Bill. And speaking of friends of mine, let me begin tonight by bringing greetings from another friend of mine. He's on the other side of the world, but I know his heart is here with all of you, and I know he kicked off your week of gathering for the Faith and Freedom Coalition. So allow me to bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. You know, starting you off this week, the President said, and I quote, "Americans' belief in God has forged the character of our country and made our nation a light unto the world." And the President added, "Our administration is fighting for all Americans, and we're embracing the faith community as never before." And thanks to your support, and thanks to the leadership of this President, I'm pleased to report to you that faith and freedom are on the rise all across America. You know, it's the greatest honor of my life to serve as Vice President to a president who gets up every day just to keep the promises that he made to the American people. And he's been standing without apology for faith and freedom every day. I've seen it when the cameras are off. This is a president who's a man of action, but President Donald Trump is a man of his word, and he has kept his word to communities of faith all across America. You know, I think there's only one way you can describe the last 2 years. It's been 2 years of action. It's been 2.5 years of results. It's been 2.5 years of promises made and promises kept. But we're just getting started. I mean, think about it. President Trump promised to revive the American economy by rolling back red tape, unleashing American energy, fighting for fair trade deals, and passing the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history, and that's exactly what we've done. And the results are remarkable. You're from all across America, so you don't need me to tell you, but I'll tell you anyway. 5.8 million new jobs since Election Day 2016, and the unemployment rate is at a 50-year low. Wages are rising at the fastest pace in more than a decade, and probably most meaningful to the President and me. Wages are rising at their fastest pace for working and blue-collar Americans. The forgotten men and women of America are forgotten no more. And the American dream is working again for every American. The unemployment rate for women is at a 60-year low, and it's the lowest unemployment rate ever recorded for African Americans and Hispanic Americans. I can tell you in this room, no, firsthand, confidence is back. Jobs are back. In a word, America is back. But as we all know, the foundation of our prosperity is security, and on that count, the President's been busy as well. After years where we saw reckless cutbacks in our military, at a time when we took office, there were literally American military aircraft that were grounded so they could be used as spare parts for other aircraft to keep them in the air. Thanks to this President's leadership and our strong allies in the Congress of the United States, President Trump signed the largest increase in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. We're rebuilding our military. We're restoring the arsenal of democracy, and we are once again giving our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard the resources and training they deserve. And with that renewed American strength, we have a president who is once again embracing his role as leader of the free world. We're standing strong with our allies, and we're having our allies do more than they've ever done before. As I stand before you today, our NATO allies are contributing more to our common defense than they have for decades. And this president has stood. He stood with our allies, especially our most cherished ally, like when President Trump kept a promise that had been made by 4 previous administrations only to be set aside, but this president kept it when he moved the United States Embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the State of Israel. That's what we call promises made and promises kept. With that renewed American strength, we've also stood up to our adversaries and those who would challenge America's interests around the world. This president's put Iran on notice. It will no longer tolerate their malign activity or their spread of terrorism in the world. We've brought North Korea to the negotiating table. The president's on the Korean Peninsula as we speak, and will be headed to the DMZ maybe before this dinner is out. And we've taken the fight to radical Islamic terrorists on our terms, on their soil. And thanks to the courage of our men and women of the United States Armed Forces and this Commander-in-Chief, the last inch of territory controlled by ISIS has been captured. The black flag of the caliphate flies no more over the territory they once controlled. And I'm proud to report, in the wake of that military victory, the United States is also, under this president's leadership, helping to rebuild communities across the Nineveh plain that were devastated by the brutality of ISIS. And I'm proud to report, with the strong support of our partners in Congress, the United States has already committed more than $300 million in aid to rebuild Christian and Yazidi communities torn asunder by war. In fact, the United States is also standing strong and calling out religious persecution wherever it takes place, whether it be in Nicaragua, in Russia, Iran, or in the People's Republic of China. And I want to promise you, this administration is going to continue to speak out and stand up for the freedom of conscience and the freedom of religion for people all over the world. We will hold up that ideal. Men and women, persecuted Christians around the world deserve our prayers, and I promise you that they will always have the support of the United States of America. This administration has worked tirelessly, I'm proud to say, also to secure the release of Americans facing persecution and captivity, from Egypt to Venezuela to North Korea and to Turkey, where after 2 years of captivity, thanks to the tenacious demand of this president, Pastor Andrew Brunson is home. So we've stood up for people of faith and our most cherished values on the world stage, but as you all know and have been such a big part, we've also been standing for those values here at home since the very first day of this administration. This president has reaffirmed our commitment to the rule of law, to the foundation of constitutional principles upon which our nation was built. This president has actually appointed more judges to our federal court of appeals in the last 2 years than any president in American history, and they are all principled conservatives who will uphold the God-given liberties enshrined in our Constitution, like the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. I've met many of these judges on the bench. They're incredible. 114 federal judges confirmed so far, Senator. And how about a round of applause for Senator Langford and Leader McConnell and all the great Republicans in the United States Senate who have confirmed these great judges, including Justice Neil Gorsuch and Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And our administration has also taken action to protect and promote our first freedom, the religious liberty of every American. You know, I probably don't need to tell all of you that we live in a time when it's actually become fashionable to mock religious belief. We see it among media elites, television commentators, and liberal politicians. We remember back in 2016 when they called us deplorable. Recently, our former vice president actually said that Americans who stand for traditional moral values are, in his words, forces of intolerance, including, and I quote, dregs of society. In fact, one senator who also has national aspirations said that our administration's budget director, who happens to be a Bible-believing Christian, is not, as he said, quote, someone who this country is supposed to be about, simply because he was a Christian. Well, I must tell you, the American people cherish the religious freedom and the freedom of conscience of every one of our citizens, and these attacks on people of the Christian faith must stop.